Hi there, friends, everybody. Happy New Year from us here at Akpele and Associates. This is our first recording this year, so we're very excited. I'm going to give a shout out today to my team, Ms. Chidima Okechukwu and Mr. Remy Okerafo. So we hope this year we're going to have a lot more things, broadcasts, Facebook Live sessions, and maybe even our YouTube Live, just so that we can bring you more information. Today, I'm going to talk to you about who can file a relative petition for their relations. What relations can they file for? US citizens can petition, and green card holders can petition as well. However, US citizens have more people who they're allowed to petition for than green card holders. If you're a US citizen, you can petition for your parents. You can petition for your spouse. You can petition for your siblings. And you can also petition for your children. But if you're a green card holder, you can only petition for your spouse and your unmarried children. So that's speaking in very broad strokes. We got a bunch of questions from people who had called in asking over the holiday period, and we wanted to address those questions. They give you some answers. Now remember, all the answers we give you here are really general answers. If you want a more particular answer for your case, you call us. Call our office 404-250-3295 to schedule an appointment. Then we can discuss your case particularly. This broadcast, the live broadcast is just to give you ideas, give you general ideas. I'm sure in some cases it may answer your questions, but they just to get you thinking. And then if you call in, schedule a consultation, we can discuss your case at that point in time. So one of the questions we received today was the procedure for getting a green card. One of our a prospective client wanted to file the procedure for getting a green card for their parents. And I told that person what the answer to that is this. Just like anybody else, and it applies across the board. If you want to get your relation into the US with a green card, that's to say an immigrant, it's the very same thing. The first thing you do as a US citizen or the green card holder is that you file a relative petition on their behalf. So US citizen and the green card holder, you file a relative petition, and that's the very first thing to do. Now, the next thing is your parent, I guess, or your other relation, if they want to get the actual green card. What should they do? Depends on where they're located. If that relation is in the US, sometimes they're able to immediately file a relative their adjustment application at the same time as you are filing the relative petition. Otherwise, if they're outside the US, then they'll go to the US consulate in their country. They will apply for an immigrant visa. And the immigrant visa lets them come in. And once you get into the airport with that immigrant visa, you'll be processed for your green card. And in a few days, your green card will get to you at home. And you're now a permanent resident, a green card holder yourself. So that's the process. Another person wanted to find out how long will it take for your relation to get your green card. And that thing, the answer is all over the place. It could take a while longer. It could take a shorter time too. So if your parent is in the US, it might, well, I guess in the end, it takes, whether they're in the US or outside the US, it's almost the same amount of processing time. Although sometimes those who are processing from outside the US may find that they have spent more time waiting for their green card process to be concluded. So If you're and then if you're already in the US, you might not even be able to file that green card application. You first have to qualify to file it. And one important thing is if you're a non-citizen nation, they're trying to file for that green card, they must have had an inspected entry into the US. That is to say, when they stopped at the border, they should have seen an immigration officer. If you just sneak into the country, walk across the border, or maybe you come in with another person's passport, you're not going to be able to get your green card from inside the US. You have to go outside. And that again will affect how long it will take. But let's say you have an ideal situation where somebody came in with an inspection and now they want to get a green card. They are filing their green card application. Then to go back to who is your petitioner. If a US citizen is petitioning for their mother, their father, their spouse, or their children under the age of 21, and that child came in after seeing an immigration officer, then the child may be able to file the green card application at the same time as when their parents are when their parent, who is the US citizen, is filing their green card petition. So it's a little nuanced, and like I said, you can, if you call the office, we will tell you how you should apply in your own particular case. We have another question from somebody who's asking if they can file a series of petitions at the same time. That's to say you're a US citizen, can you petition for your mother, your father, your siblings, your child, all at the same time? The answer is yes. All it will need you to do is the money for paying your filing fees. You must have it available. And of course, having your lawyer's fees if you're going to have a lawyer assist you, which of course is always advisable. So yes, you can file for multiple relations at the same time. What's the next question? Somebody asked the question, if can their parents become a US citizen if they are US citizens? The short answer is yes, eventually. Because remember, you cannot just go into being a US citizen. Nobody just jumps into being a US citizen like that. You have to go, you go through the green card process. First, you get your green card, hold it for a certain number of years, and then you apply to naturalize. If you got your green card through your parent or your child or your sibling, or maybe even an employer in some cases too, you're going to have to wait 5 years before you become eligible to file to naturalize. But if you got your US citizenship, your green card through your US spouse, then after 3 years of having that green card, you're allowed to apply to naturalize. The very same thing, another question is, can my siblings become US citizens if I am? Yes, but eventually. So again, even your siblings, everybody has to go through that process of having their green card, then eventually transition to being a US citizen. So yes, eventually they can be, but the very first thing for them to do is to get a green card. And the process for that is the relative petition, which the US citizen or the green card holder files with immigration, telling immigration, hey, I'm a citizen and I would like to I would like you to grant immigration benefits to my relation. Could be your father, your mother, your spouse, your child, your sibling. And then if I kind of would switch back again to how long it would take for each person to get their green card, not just you have to go into immigration law and how it classifies immigration beneficiaries as immediate relatives or preference relatives. If your parents spouses and children under the age of 21 are called immediate relatives. So if you're not one of these, then you're a preference relative. And then there's quotas. A certain number of visas are available for preference relatives every year. So because the quotas are not, it's not a very wide number of visas, about 23,000 every year. That means there's always more people wanting a green card than the number of green cards available to be issued that year. So that's what really creates the long lines, which is the long wait period. So a person would have to wait. And they also classify, even in the quota preferences, there's people who are giving more priority. The spouses and children under 21 of US of permanent residents, they will always have they are given faster processing times just so that they can be reunited. So sometimes those categories will run almost at the same time, processing times, as those of immediate relatives. But for siblings of US citizens, children of US citizens, it will always take a long time. Sometimes the wait time is almost 8 years, 9 years, 10 years. But the important thing is to go ahead and file that petition, because the sooner it gets filed, then the sooner you get your relation on the queue for a visa number. And I'll tell you, time does tend to fly. Everybody knows that. So that, hey, it mightn't be too long, and it will be time for them to go and apply for their immigrant visa or apply to adjust status if they're already in the US and meet certain circumstances. Oh yeah, and we've also got the question of whether cousins can be filed for. No, unfortunately, you cannot file a relative petition for your cousins, your favorite auntie or uncle, no. Your dearly beloved grandparents, no. You can, if you're a citizen, like I said, you can file for your parents. You can file for your child of any age, although the wait time will be different. And if you can also file for your siblings. So that's the parameters for filing. You can't file for any other person, unfortunately. And also, I should say that children includes adopted children and stepchildren. So let's say you go to your country, you married a foreign-born person who already has a child. If that child is under the age of 16 when your step relationship was established, that is to say, when you married their parent, then that child qualifies as a stepchild, and that child can come along with their mom, under their mom's petition. Or you can also you can file for if you're a US citizen, you can file for your stepchild. Only permanent residents have their spouse's kids coming under their parents' non-US citizen parents' green card application. If you're a US citizen, you can file a relative petition for your stepchild. Also, if you have adopted kids from outside the US, you also can petition for your adopted child after the adoption has had custody and control of the child for 2 years. Oh wow! Then there's the person who wants to find out about what to do about a successful visa processing. I've made a little reel before, and the most important thing is to answer the questions correctly. You need to give the correct answers to every question you're asked, whether on the form or at an interview if you have to attend one. If you're asked to submit any documents, you make sure that the documents you're submitting are properly obtained from the proper authorities, because the USCIS and I guess the US consulate in your country, they will trust you, but they'll verify. So they're going to look at the documents you're submitting to them. And the officers are trained to detect, documents that may not quite be correct documents, and they can run their forensic tests on their documents if need be. If they're a little suspicious of a relationship, they will go do a site visit just to verify and confirm regarding the relationship or even employment that's being claimed. So important things is just presenting the correct documents, answering questions, giving the correct, truthful answers. Remember, even if you have a hard situation, sometimes you may have a waiver that's available to waive certain things that might consider to be inadmissible. That is to say, unfit to be given a green card. But we'll talk about waivers in another session. And, well, I think that's all the questions we got, which we're answering today. However, another thing I wanted to mention is this is 2024, January 2024. This year is an election year. So our next video, our next session will be about transitioning from being a green card holder to becoming a US citizen. It's important this election year. That way you'll be able to vote in the elections, the presidential elections later this year, November. So that will be our next session on our next live session. And I look forward to seeing you all then. And if you do have any questions, to send it to us, just post it to us on our Facebook page and we'll answer your questions. Of course, you can always call in line too and call in live. So please tell your friends, or you can bring your friend along if you're coming for the next live session. Thank you and bye-bye.